Cool.
They're chatting away. Look, it looks like they're, because Patrick has been stressed out throughout the day. Taking the time to kind of have a chat with your opponent, kind of relax a little bit. You can take a little bit of a breather.
Yeah.
In fact, I think from the score, it looks like Patrick didn't start 0-2. He started 0-0-2.
0-0-2. Right. Okay. So it started 0-0-2. Still.
It does need to win out.
It does need to win out.
It's exactly the same board, stating that he needs to still win out, but it becomes quite a stressful game. So,
so we
see what
begin
the hands
to,
are.
Is that a Remoraid? We see a Beast Ring. It looks
gonna
like a
guess that's a
Buzzwole
Buzzwole.
deck. And Jake Wolvin himself. We see a Max Elixir. Looks like Malamar. Is that a Dawn Wings right there? So
It looked like it
looks
might have
like a Psychic, perhaps. Malamar versus Buzzwole. From what I can see there, I'm not 100% sure. It could be Ultra Necrozma yet, but we will find out shortly.
So what you saw there was Patrick putting his prize cards out and then went, oh, no, wait, we have these really cool glass tables to put them on instead.
Oh, gosh. 3 Psychic and 2 Floatstone prize for Jake. The Marshadow in there. That pretty much confirms for us that he is, in fact, playing the Psychic variant. That Marshadow really good in the Zoroark matchup we saw earlier today. Nothing too stressful on Patrick's side. The Super Rod's in there, of course, but he should be able to draw into that fairly soon. And, of course, maybe just one Choice Band as well might become a problem.
Actually, something that's going to be a pretty big deal, and it's going to happen immediately, is he's going to Ultra Ball, and he's going to be looking for a Tapu Lele, so he can draw some cards. Now, if this list is the standard list, the list that did well in Madison,
you've only got one Lele. Yeah,
and he's just gone
and
through
he's
and he's
noticed
gone,
that.
oh, I've just discarded 2 cards I like, and I don't even get a Lele for this.
And that is rough, and he goes for the Octillery. He knows that he's got a Remoraid in hand. I guess that's the best thing he can really go for, unless he wants to start benching some more Pokemon to keep himself in the game. The Octillery, quite a risky pick here.
Well, no, so the thing is, it's actually pretty safe, because the only way he doesn't have this Octillery in his hand at the end of the next turn, there's no way Jake's taking a KO, is if he gets end. But his hand's already kind of shaky. So if he gets end out of a kind of shaky hand, he's not likely to have a shaky hand again. So he can actually get away with it. We see him opting to play the Floatstone onto the Regirock. In some situations, you might want to hold that, especially against Malamar decks, where you'll expect them to have a high field blower count. You don't play that many of your own Floatstones, so there's a temptation to sometimes go, let's not take it this turn.
So the interesting thing I can see here is actually he's playing Fighting Fury Belts in this deck.
In the Malamar list, yes.
In the Malamar list. Do you want to run us through perhaps why the Fighting Fury Belt might be a good pick for him in this matchup?
Since your main attacker in these matchups are Necrozma GX, where you have variable damage output anyway, anything that you were missing the KO on, you just can normally find a way of getting that 4th energy anyway, and now suddenly you have 220 HP. 220 HP means a lot of the things that were supposed to counter, the psychic techs that are good against the Necrozma no longer quite reach the numbers. But it also just means that the non-GX Buzzwole can never KO you. It needs to have an awful lot of commitment to be able to do so. And kind of forces really tricky situations of kind of going, right, okay, I would normally deal with it this way. I guess not. And it's another thing we've seen, a lot of decks have decided to capitalise on the fact that most Buzzwole lists aren't playing Field Blower.
Yeah, I mean, none of this one included doesn't seem to be playing a Field Blower. Slight difference to some of the other ones. We do have the 1 Super Rod in here that we can see in the prizes. Very useful for that 1/1 Rockruff Lycanroc line and the 1/1 Remoraid Octillery. So obviously those cards, if they do end up in the discard pile very early, he does have the Super Rod to get them back in most cases. Obviously this game, the slight exception. But Jake really finding his paces now, getting down all of the attackers that he needs to overcome this Buzzwole deck. We see the Mewtwo GX that we've talked about a few times today with that Side Strike attack, being able to cut through any sort of effects that may stop it from working. Mewtwo goes into the active, and we see Patrick draw for his turn.
Yeah, so it looks like Patrick's list is more or less the same as Eagle's list. I think it is 60 cards. The same with this is Super Rod, so there's a cut somewhere for a Super Rod, but he's playing a very similar list. A really nice list, putting a heavy emphasis on EX and GX attackers, which is particularly helpful when you're facing things like Malamar, where you really can't afford to have non-EX and GX attackers lying around.
Yeah, I think that especially with Malamar having so many techs against Buzzwole, those psychic attackers will be able to just steal prizes from underneath the big GX Pokemon. So obviously running those babies allows the prize trade to be a little bit more fair, although Jake might have the things ready to creep up behind those fighting types. He's not going to get much benefit out of it. Prize-wise, he's going to have to work very hard to take all 6 if these baby Buzzwoles are the only thing on the board. We do see the Field Blower come down, getting rid of the Floatstone on Regirock. Obviously a big chunky Pokemon to get brought up into the active. If Jake does find himself in a position where he needs a few turns, perhaps a good option there.
Yeah, so you see Patrick has decided, right, let's just start by taking out the NKs, and he's actually in a position with his current hand that he may be able to do so. If Jake doesn't hit anything off the Cynthia, you know, at least another NK, ideally Malamar, it seems quite likely that there's a way of taking a KO.
He does hit 2 Elixir, which is very nice for him. It does mean that this Dawnwings might actually be able to become active this turn.
Yeah.
He does hit a Psychic. The Mewtwo coming in on that. The Mewtwo, obviously, its first attack does do 30 and 30 more for every energy attached to it. So, of course, that can do a lot of damage to the Buzzwole if he does get 2 more energy on it.
He has 3 Elixirs in hand and
3 Elixir. Oh, okay. So, and he does hit another one. So this Mewtwo is definitely going to be able to knock out this baby Buzz.
This Mewtwo is going to be doing some really quite mean things to this Buzzwole.
Yeah, that's quite nasty, especially with the Dawnwings having the Floatstone on it already. This Mewtwo is going to come in swinging. And that's what we're going to see right here.
In fact, what we're actually going to see to make the damage is
the Field Blower. The first Field Blower, exactly what we said. Obviously, that taking him up to 120. The Field Blower, really nice there, taking him up to the 130 that he needs. Very, very nice. We've talked earlier in the day, you know, Ho-Oh needed 180 to take it to 190. Buzzwole, perhaps in the Buzzgar variant, has Field Blower to take it up to the 170 for the Lele without any damage modifiers. Field Blowers seem to be a really big catch at the minute, especially with the lack of Field Blower lying around.
Yeah, so Fear Belt is actually a really nice card because it just makes it's 190 HP becomes 230 HP. At least there's no resistance to deal with, but 230 is an awful lot more difficult to deal with. And since Patrick has had a slightly slow start here, you know, he's got all the bench sitters out, but nothing to actually capitalise on the bench sitters with.
I mean, he could Bedrock press. No, he's definitely not in a position to Bedrock press. So what we could see here is if Patrick doesn't actually have a way of moving this Regirock out of the active, Mewtwo can actually Psy Strike next turn.
So he's holding Guzma, so he can definitely move it. The question is that what are his actual options at any point?
He has to Sycamore here. He needs to start progressing his board state. He's got nothing on board. Those 2 Elixirs will definitely help with that situation of progression of board state. I'm sure I saw an energy there as well, so he just doesn't have a basic Pokemon though.
There's no Pokemon in his hand, which means that, yeah, next turn it seems likely that Patrick could instead decide to just...
Oh, that has got to hurt, unfortunately for Patrick. That is not a good start at all. He's going to have to go into the Diancie.
And he does genuinely have to set up the Bedrock Press here to ever have an attacker, it looks like.
The Bedrock Press coming out. You know, being able to nullify the damage to Regirock by 30 could be good with the Mewtwo Psy Strike coming down. If that's actually the play that he wants to go for.
But it doesn't hit through all things on the opposed Pokemon, so
Psy Strike hits through all effects. I hope that Patrick does know that if that's what he's actually going for. Mewtwo actually able to hit through that minus 30 damage. Oh, it'll be really disappointing for him if he does overextend and go for that without realising. And he passes... Perhaps just going for the 2 energy just in case the Field Blower comes down so he's able to move the Regirock back out. But a Invasion and a Guzma here would be able to allow Psy Strike to knock out that Regirock. There's not too much else going on Patrick's board, but if Jake has the opportunity to capitalise on 2 more prizes, it's definitely what he wants to go ahead and do.
You can see he's Ultra Balling. From the current state of the board, it looks like it would be a sensible time to take a Tapu Lele.
He Ultra Balls for Sycamore. He does grab the Tapu Lele and the Sycamore, of course. So it looks like he's not going to go for the Guzma for the Regirock. Not a massive deal. Obviously, Regirock not really too much of a threat. it's only doing 100 damage, minus him by 30, but, however, getting rid of that Diancie could cause a lot of problems, simply because it does give Buzzwole that plus 20. That does actually allow it to hit those mass where the Fighting Fury belts are sitting. So Buzzwole can actually manage to hit 230 with a Diancie out. However, without it, it becomes increasingly more difficult.
Yeah, so it depends what he hits off of the Sycamore. I see a couple of energy, but he really wants to be finding ways of putting a couple of energy in discard and start setting up things like the Dawn Wings.
Yeah, I think using Side Strike on the Diancie isn't necessarily the best thing for him to do. If it becomes the only option he has left, I don't think it's terrible, but of course he does want to save his GX attack for a really utilised moment, especially with Dawn Wings being able to use Moon's Eclipse GX.
So I think the other option he could have gone for, I think he has enough Lele, but he could have actually opted to go into a Guzma to take up the Remoraid, because that basically means that Patrick's odds of drawing out of this were always shorter. But instead, going to find more Inkay, just because he knows that ultimately his game plan does depend on finding ways to attach many cards to energy to all of his Pokemon in a single turn. So he needs these multiple attachments set up on the bench. Yeah,
and it does look like here he is going to go for the Side Strike. Oh no, actually, he gets the extra energy. He's going for the full burst for a 420 damage, taking out the Diancie, sending it straight to the Lost Zone.
This is for Patrick's board state now. I think he's just drawn another Elixir. He has an energy in hand.
The Bedrock Press is real. It's coming. And the really worrying thing for Patrick here is, obviously, Beast Ring now active. However, if he doesn't find something soon, it's not going to be. He's going to be able to take a knockout on that Regirock, and Mewtwo's going to be able to come back in next turn now and take a Side Strike, and I don't think there's any possible way at all for him to win the game after that.
So I think this is game one, because it becomes in where he's just going to switch in the Dawn Wings,
move out into the Mewtwo, take that knockout, and that's it. He's got a Tapu Lele, can maybe end down to a really small size of hand for Jake, but I really don't see that stopping him from taking two prizes.
I just took a moment there to double check the text on Side Strike GX. It ignores all effects on attacks of your opponent's Pokemon, which just means that, yeah, this Bedrock Press, it just doesn't care. It's just
100 damage onto something that Jake just really doesn't mind. It's 100 onto a Necrozma. He's got plenty of resources, plenty of time to get out another attacker as well. So and this Mewtwo's looking threatening anyway.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, is that at this point, Jake has got full control over this, because he takes a KO with Side Strike, GX.
He hits the Malamar as well.
2 energy gone. He's down to 2 prize cards left. It becomes an awful lot more difficult to actually finish the game off.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see a Mystery Treasure there from the look of his hand. Yeah, so that comes down. He's going to probably grab himself another, Inkay here, just to keep that consistency up. He's got plenty of time to set them up, as Patrick really isn't showing any signs of clawing himself back into this. He might be stressed. However, nothing's going to help him get out of this at the minute, I don't think.
He might be stressed now, but when Jake declares Side Strike GX and he has to go, wait, this takes KO, I think it might be a new level.
And I think, no, he's going to put the damage out, but I hope they do realise that it is a knockout. Yeah, he's realised it is a knockout.
Like, oh, so it is.
It goes through everything, and of course the Remoraid becomes active now. He does have a Lele. All Jake needs is a Guzma for that Lele to knock it out. If I was Patrick, I would scoop here, knowing there isn't much way for me to win. I can't use my Beast Ring anymore. My Sledgehammer isn't as strong. Sing Me as you're below 4 prizes now, and I want as much time as possible to play the next 2 games.
Yeah, so what we've seen here is, we were talking about text earlier on, maybe when we should have been talking about a game, but we were talking about text. The Mewtwo GX has a lot of versatility. It actually gets to pretty big numbers.
Yeah. So Patrick's going, I think that's definitely the right choice. Yeah, I think Patrick's definitely made the right choice there. Of course, one of the better skills of good players is knowing when it's time to scoop. The round started at 50 minutes. It's only taken 15 minutes to get to this point. There's still plenty of time for 2 games to be carried out here, especially if both players play to a normal speed. So Patrick, plenty of time to be able to claw his way back 2 games as well. He'll hope for a better draw this time. But the one thing that is key to highlight is that whole thing was based off of that turn 1 end. Obviously, if Patrick was able to get that Octillery down in the early turns, he would have had Octillery to draw himself the whole way through the game then, perhaps not dead drawing as bad. However, Jake hit the N, which is definitely the right choice, and forced Patrick into a really awkward situation.
Well, so that's actually a really big thing, is that whilst everyone kind of accepts Buzzwole as being one of the best decks in the format, it is one of those decks that can buzz break, is the phrase I've heard used. It just does sometimes miss things. Sometimes you play a fairly large number of energy, so sometimes you just draw energy, or you'll draw your beast rings on your first turn and a sycamore, and you're like, I can't afford to possibly sycamore this. You get into these situations where your hands can be, they're never really dead, but they're super awkward.
Yeah, I think that the deck really functions off of your opponent as well as itself, you know what I mean? So if your opponent as well, I feel with the deck, if your opponent isn't actually playing and keeping up with you, that can also cause awkward problems, because it means that if you're just poking away and you're doing it slowly, but your opponent isn't setting up and they're not taking prizes, you might take those prizes, get end, and then you fall behind because your opponent then starts to set up and you're not drawing into anything. So I do find that we are today starting to find little creeps in Buzzwole to where it's not perfect. The deck is absolutely fantastic. It's the best deck in the format and it is right up there, but there are these little holes in there, and obviously these Malamar decks and other decks today we have seen have tried to exploit it, and some of them being very successful at doing so.
Yeah, well, so it looks like that was a mulligan again from Jake. Patrick just considering his options. I think he has 3 cards in hand. He could, in theory,
I
start with.
I saw a Rockruff and a Buzzwole. I think the Regirock is there again to haunt him, ready to Bedrock press its way straight into Tier 1 Regirock. We do see 2 Elixir in hand as well. A very nice opening hand, apart from the fact that it's lacking a supporter.
Well, so this is the thing, is that surely he can start the Baby Buzz quite safely, right? That's always fine. And in doing so, he can basically Elixir onto the bench Buzzwole. He can put the Regirock down, he can get an attachment in. He's got a way of basically really changing the early part of the game. I think is that a Lele in hand?
I don't know. Yeah, it looks like it is.
But
no, it's not.
The problem with the hand overall is, look at that. Those Elixirs in hand, look at those prizes.
Oh, wow, okay. I think Patrick may have wanted to shuffle a little bit better before this game.
Well, the thing is that when you're playing 10 energy, having 3 prizes is not that uncommon, but it does make your Elixir hits much less likely.
It's not just the 3 prized, it's the strong and the beast energy as well. Patrick looking very frustrated there for missing both of those Elixirs. However, to his knowledge, that is probably most likely what the outcome would have been. For him, he probably feels hard done by and very unlucky, but from what we can see, obviously, that is probably the right outcome.
Yep. Well, because what he really wants here is to put, the ideal turn 1 for Buzzwole would have been to be able to play one of those Elixirs and get it on the Rockruff, because then you're immediately starting to threaten Dangerous Rogue. As soon as you can threaten the Dangerous Rogue, you also have things like, if they ever have to Moon's Eclipse GX, you can Guzma, Bloodthirsty Eyes, Dangerous Rogue, it's gone. You've dealt with that. And that's a really important part of the strategy in these kinds of matchup.
Yeah, we do see Jake's... I don't know what happened with my voice.
Yeah, it's been a long day.
Yeah, we do see Jake's ideal first turn, where he just goes to that Bridget, gets damage, NKs. Dawnwing's already on the board. He knows that that's a very ample attacker in this matchup. It's actually really found its way right at the top of the format now, I find. Dawnwing's really, really cool card. Dark Flash doing a really substantial, efficient amount of damage, being able to knock out Buzzwoles, but not a fantastic finish to the turn for Jake. I'm hoping he's got a supporter in hand for next turn, allowing himself to take that a little bit further. But we do see Patrick use that Sycamore off the top deck that he got, and he does draw into a little bit more. He hits another Elixir, a Buzzwole in hand.
So he has strong energy. He doesn't really want to commit the strong energy because he doesn't.
And he misses another.
Yeah, at this point he might start getting suspicious of how many are in his prize cards. But he's in a position where he can, he doesn't want us to commit the strong energy to the active, because in doing so he gets put into a horrible position of that Dawnwings doesn't need much to be able to take a KO, and you don't want to be losing multiple energy items, especially because having missed a couple of Elixir, you start probably thinking, where are they?
Where are my energy?
Yeah,
Did I leave them under the table?
he does have the Diancie Prism Star, I think I saw in his hand, and a Choice Band. So he can do a fair chunk of damage just from, it would be 90 before resistance. Without having to commit the strong, he can then opt to commit the strong to the benched Baby Buzzwole as a kind of way of saying, right, okay, but we have a follow-up. We have a plan to keep this going.
Yeah, I just think in this position, he's still not hitting the cards he wants in the right order. I think right now he really could have done with hitting that Elixir, getting another energy down on the board and threatening maybe more than just one extra attacker on the bench, threatening something like 2, threatening a Rockruff and another Buzzwole, but unfortunately he's priced so many energy that just wasn't possible for him. Jake top deck in the Malamar, that's coming down ASAP, he knows that that's where it needs to be. We see another Psychic in hand and a Guzma, a Fighting Fury Belt and a Sycamore. I think we see the energy goes onto Lele with the Fighting Fury Belt.
Just trying to spot those.
I think he might have misplayed, thinking he could retreat with Dawn Wings. The Sycamore comes down. He's going to have to hit Floatstone here to carry out the rest of the plan that he had. We do see an Elixir, Psychic Energy. Oh, we do have another Dawn Wings as well.
So in a lot of matchups, having double Dawn Wings is actually super nice because you basically get unlimited maneuverability. You can switch things around, you can get your attackers almost always into the correct combinations of where they need to be. So it's another Legend Treasure. Discarding the Psychic, the perfect discard at this point in the game when you're grabbing.
The perfect discard.
Because, now you just get to grab, a Malamar, and that was basically a free card. You just played Mysterious Treasure and you got free attachments.
Just the one Psychic in the discard though. From the looks of what he was trying to do earlier, I think he wants it on the Lele, but no way to move Dawn Wings out of the active in order to make that happen. Debating whether to play the Elixir here. I don't think it's the right time for him to do so. I think he might want to wait till the Dawn Wings or something more effective is on the bench in order to do so. The Malamar's ready to go though.
So with the Dawn Wings in hand, what he could do is he could Invasion with the Dawn Wings in hand, bring it to the bench, Elixir onto it, then use the Malamar that's in the discard pile to attach the energy, then Invasion the first Dawn Wings with damage and
that's
take the KO.
Exactly what he is doing as well. So he's followed along right with what you said, almost like he heard you, and he moves in with Invasion. And as you said, 2 invasions is really good. Just being able to move things around so nicely and so efficiently at no cost at all. So we do see the Elixir come down. There is the Malamar attach as well in there. And of course, we'll see Dark Flash ready to take the knockout on that Buzzwole in the active.
Yep. So the nice thing about Dawn Wings in this matchup in particular is it really becomes kind of difficult to deal with very quickly. Outside of Patrick finding basically exactly Lycanroc this turn, and an energy, there's no way to respond. And then with the situation he's in, where he has 2 Malamar on bench, if that first Dawn Wings goes, he just promotes another one. He promotes the Lele, can just attach the 3 energy that were lost,
and go again.
And just do it again. It's fine.
And of course, we've still got the Moon's Eclipse as well. So if Patrick does actually opt to go for Dangerous Rogue in order to knock out this forward-fronting Dawn Wings, then it does mean the bench one is then able to come into the active with no way for Bloodthirsty Eyes to be activated a second time, making it ever more effective. It does seem to be the play that Patrick is going for, though.
He's looking through going, okay, so why did all my elixirs miss? And he's now counting through, I think he just did a count of his energy, he's like,
I just lip read what he said, and he said, "Oh my god!" So I think he's realised that there are quite a lot of energy prized.
But there's also his artillery is prized. Like those prizes have really been quite inconvenient for him.
I'd say more than inconvenient. Just prizing the artillery means that he's actually not able to get it whatsoever due to the fact that he plays a 1/1 line. He doesn't activate Bloodthirsty, and of course going for that Dangerous Rogue by the looks of things as well at the end.
We see a nice empty-handed Cynthia, so he does get to take the KO. But then there don't need to be too many cards played on Jake's part to be able to basically make this KO.
However, one really interesting thing off that Cynthia, he does hit the Beast Ring, which does mean that if Jake moves in and he takes 2 prizes now, he does at least have a Beast Ring to be able to try and respond the turn afterwards, either with Baby Buzz or even grabbing out a Buzz GX and slamming into it.
The issue is here you can never really afford to take the Buzz GX because it's so easy to be KO'd. And whilst having access to the Beast Ring is nice, you're always in like tricky situations. So we see the Dangerous Rogue, 50 for each Pokemon on the bench, plus the extra 50 that it's currently getting from from everything, all the other boosts. It's doing 250 damage, and very easily taking the KO.
Yeah, so as we see straight away, Lele moves in. I'm pretty sure we're going to see the Psychic Recharge all jump down onto the Dawn Wings. All he needs then is a Choice Band in order to be able to knock it out. So now he has
3
Malamar, which is the simple, most perfect position to be in any game ever. 3 Malamar, 3 extra energy a turn, without an attachment. What more could you ask for?
Well, especially because he's now at the point where he can power up the Dawn Wings, move in, hit GX attack. Patrick's stuck with a board that doesn't really have many options. You know, he's in a position where he's like, okay, well, I'd like to try and find a way of taking these prize cards, but I can KO a Malamar?
The one thing we have to remember as well is Moon's Eclipse will make Jake immune for that turn as well.
Yes,
meaning that Patrick has to A, try and find Pokemon to progress his board state, but B, be able to find Guzma to get around that. And with the Parallel City down from Jake, I don't see that being too massively possible. Really hindering that. It means there's no opportunity to play Lele in order to find extra things. He does have the Guzma in hand, he does have the Sycamore as well though, but it's going to be a big, long debate.
So I actually like this line instead. So he had the option to use the GX attack this turn, but actually, why bother taking the GX attack when you can just remove the threat? Let's just get rid of it. You know, we could do 180 and set it up for a KO later on, but the other option is just...
Oh, I never would have gone for the GX attack if I didn't hit Choice Band. That was the thing. I didn't know if he had Choice Band in hand or not.
No, I don't think he's playing it, so he's playing the Fury Belts instead, but it was if he could find the Float Stone to be able to pivot the Dawn Wings with the important card there.
Yes, so Prismatic Burst doing the job that it's meant to do there, and it is absolutely rinsing through these fighting types. Patrick in a really, really tough position here. He's got an Octillery in his hand that he just doesn't need. Ultra Ball, 2 Guzma and a Sycamore as well. It's going to be a rough Sycamore if he needs to do it. We've
Beast Ring as well?
He's got Beast Ring, however, that only matches out his damage at 140 right now with the Diancie on bench.
But he could... He has an Ultra Ball, and he has a Super Rod, and he has his Guzma. So what he could go for is to Ultra Ball to get the Buzzwole GX. He has no choice here. He has to go into the Buzzwole GX to be able to take any prize cards. Okay, so he's instead going on this way, but he could have gone for the Buzzwole GX, attached to the Buzzwole GX, Super Rodded them back in, so he didn't lose any of the energy. Guzmud kept one of the energies in hand and was able to take a KO. But instead, he's decided that it's actually a better situation here just to go with the single prize attacker because he needs to be able to tilt the prize trade somehow.
Ultra Ball for 2 energy. That's 2 more energy in the discard though for Patrick.
I think he still has the Super Rod in hand, so it's okay. He can put them back. But in going for
he just used the Super Rod.
Okay, so that's okay though, because it means that there's only those 2 prizes that he's lost. I'm going for the Sycamore instead.
There's the Sycamore. We do see an Elixir that might actually be able to hit with his deck being slightly thinner now, as well as another Fighting Energy. Buzzwole can use Sledgehammer this turn.
Yeah, so he can use the Sledgehammer, but it's not quite doing enough. He would have needed a Strong or a Band, I believe, to be able to take the KO. But with Swing Around, it's effectively now 120, so it's 100 base, 110 base before the coin flips, which means it does only cap out at 150, but if he could have found the Band as well, it was actually a possible way of taking the KO on the Necrozma.
Yeah, the Sycamore not too nice to him here, giving him pretty much the same things that he had in his hand before. Floatstone coming down on Regirock. And I don't think Jake's in a position where he wants to stall. He's very comfortable right now. 3 Malamar on board. Patrick's going to have to do all the work to win this game. He flips tails, and he flips tails. Luck is just not on his side.
No.
He's done all this work to get this far, and now luck is really biting him. Maybe made small errors on the way, but nothing to deserve to be punished that bad.
No, so the situation here now, though, is exactly the same as we had earlier on. That Jake is in a position where he can, invasion, attach to either of his 2 attackers. Both of them are equally good here. But with the damage already on the Necrozma, he may want to save that to finish the game out. He needs to find a way to take 3 prize cards. He could, he has so many options for his attackers. He can just put 3 energy on anything, and it's powered up in a turn.
Absolutely insane with 3 Malamar, and this is what the deck is designed to do, and why it's been rightly known as the Buzzwole killer, because these psychic attackers really ramp up. They really do things well when it does set up. That turn 1 Bridget really helping Jake along there, helping these basics evolve into the stage 1, and now that Dawnwings is going to look real threatening, coming in with a Dark Flash most probably, being able to knock out that Buzzwole. But just to add onto that, he does hit an Elixir as well, allowing that Lele to be slightly threatening as well, outputting 70 base damage with the Fighting Fury Belt. Patrick can't do anything about the Fury Belt either, which must be very frustrating.
If I've counted that correctly, he's only 1 attachment short of KOing the non-GX Buzzwole with that Lele.
Oh, that is exactly what he's gone for.
And he can also power up the Necrozma with 2 energy whilst it's on the bench.
And that is actually very nice play there from Jake, using the Lele to his advantage with the Field Blower. We both know, due to the list, that that's not going anywhere. That Lele has firmly got 210 HP, which of course, when Jake goes now down to 2 prizes, there'll be no Beast Ring, there'll be no Sledgehammer, and he's got to try and find a way to knock it out without them. He's used all 4 of his Elixir now. No way to accelerate energy. I think Jake has done it.
Yeah, so now we can see him just go, right, I've still got a couple of these leftover squids to use, so I'm gonna pop a couple of energy on if you don't mind. So that I take a single prize this turn, and I have a way, if you bench anything that has 2 prizes that I can take, I can probably find a way of getting to it with this Necrozma.
Yeah, obviously we have Regirock on his side of the board, just sitting in the active. It does have the Float Stone. Jake's just gonna want to hit Guzma essentially. I don't know whether it's his hand already, but the way he's put it down like that, I have a feeling that he does have Guzma. Patrick just shaking his head, not really much for him to be able to do here. I can't see a win con for himself. He's not able to knock out the Necrozma with the Fighting Fury Belt at the minute. He's just in a really tough boat.
Yeah, so he's in a tricky situation where if he KOs this Lele, the Necrozma can almost certainly respond, because anything that can KO this Lele this turn would be, a very fortunate Necrozma with multiple Elixir hits. The Buzzwole, sorry, with multiple Elixir hits, but then the Necrozma takes the 2 prizes. If he doesn't deal with the Necrozma this turn, then he has to deal with, the Lele is able to come in and take prize cards. So he kind of gets into this awful kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Goes to the end. It was a fairly big hand from Jake, so it makes sense to try and
we see the end come down. I don't think this is bad, but at the same time, with Invasion and only needed 1 energy, even if Jake takes 1 prize at the end of this turn, he's still firmly ahead. Malamar just being able to grab that Psychic and put it on board. Hopefully, though, he puts Patrick out of his misery of this Regirock once again and hits the Guzma off the top deck. Really not gone well for him so far.
So, one of the things that happened in the last in that turn is he benched the Lele. Yes, he had to defend the end. However, in doing so, he could have left the Regirock active, because it's kind of awkward to get to. Now he doesn't need the Guzma, and if he does get Guzma, he can always take the Lele if he needs it. He has multiple targets that he can go for. Not that it matters now.
And do we see the end of the game right here? Jake fiddling with the cards in his hand. We can't actually see what they are. Doesn't look like by his face he's got too many options. If I was him, I would just come in, retreat into the other Dawnwings, and of course, he's going to go for the other energy on the Lele, and he's going to bounce back in with that Lele and take a knockout. Patrick's face of dismay. I am being bullied by a Tapu Lele with 4 energy and a choice band. Jake goes down to 1 prize. He can take a knockout anywhere on his board now, just with a Dark Flash or a GX attack. And I think that's it.
Well, so the super nice is there are no energy currently in Jake's discard. However, all it takes is for him to retreat.
And that is it, yeah. Patrick couldn't find anywhere. He was really unfortunate there. I don't think Patrick really had much chance to get into either of those games. Both times it looked